Hi there, and welcome along to the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the totally free and independent Rangers show made by fans for fans, where all of our content is absolutely free. And alongside the free podcast here at Gersnet, we have a whole host of really great content. So if you head over to our website at www.gersnet.co.uk, you can get involved in our very, very friendly discussion forum, plenty of articles, match previews and reviews, a really informative history archive. So please do head over to the website and check that out if you've not done so already. If you're new to the pod, thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us the time. We go out live every Sunday night. It's just gone 9:30 p.m. on Sunday, the 6th of March, 2022. We're live every Sunday, as I say, on the Gersnet YouTube stream. But the show is always available for download first thing on a Monday morning. So please do like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, and maybe give us a wee share on social media. We are available on Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and on Spotify. So like I say, please do give us a wee subscribe and you will never miss a thing. We're here to talk today, looking back on yesterday's let's say difficult and maybe uninspiring and unentertaining performance at home against Ibrox, at home against Aberdeen to sort of usher in the 150th anniversary celebrations. And there's no two better people that I can think than to celebrate a wee bit of a birthday than two of the sort of original stalwarts of the pod. First of all, a warm welcome back to David Fraser. David, we were just saying that the last time the three of us were on together, we were managerless and looking ahead to a new era. Obviously, things have changed a wee bit, but how have you been keeping in the past couple of months?
It's okay, Ross. I'm keeping reasonably well. I was not too clever at 4:30 yesterday afternoon. I was saying off there, but thankfully the players got over the line and got the 3 points. So I guess that's the most important way to kick off the 150th anniversary celebrations.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Absolutely. And after a couple of uninspiring performances this week, we need some inspiration back in our lives. I always find Alec Anderson very, very inspirational. Alec, how's your weekend been?
If we didn't know you were hungover already, Ross, that calling me inspirational seals the deal. You know what I mean? I think the first thing we've got to say is this is 2 weekends in the trot, is it not? That you've been on here or a hungover state. You know what I mean? We were up at Ibrox last week, hungover, and I think you've got a problem here, mate. I think you've got a problem.
I know this podcast, the entire thing's a cry for help. Yeah, I've been on a stag do down in Portsmouth all weekend. I was saying to David and Alec just before we came live there that I missed the game yesterday because I was at Fratton Park, which was very enjoyable, very entertaining. Never been there before. But it meant that I missed the game at 3:00 yesterday. So I watched the whole thing, the whole 90 minutes on Rangers TV this morning on a National Express bus back to London. And I think if there's any way to make yesterday's first half performance even worse, it's enjoying it at the back of a National Express bus at 9:00 in the morning, having not really slept, feeling not great, probably feeling as good as you look, Ek, I suppose.
Oh, I don't know about that, mate. Don't be hard on yourself like that. No, well, at least there's a team that plays in red, white, and blue, and I've got a nice Archibald Leitch main stand. So if you can't be with the Rangers themselves, get the next best thing. So that's well done. Can I just say before I go on, I meant to do this last time. I need to get a big shout out to the Nairn Chosen Few RSC and their main man representing them, Stu. Twitter hero. He goes by the Twitter handle of 3 Minute Hero. A lot of you will have seen his tweet during the week, succinctly summing up why we shouldn't go to Australia with a certain club for a friendly tournament. But he's a big fan of the show, and I just want to say a happy 150th to him, to the Nairn Chosen Few, and all the other bears out there. And it's great to be on with David again.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. I should also just say, we're sort of viewers on the YouTube stream might notice we're kind of without the fancy graphics tonight. We're without the high spec production that we've come to expect in the last couple of years. Frankie's had a couple of other things that he needs to attend to, so you're with me tonight steering the ship, and I'm quite frankly not in the right frame of mind to prepare all of the graphics and the imagery. So we're going bare bones. You've got cameras on, so you can at least look at us, but no fancy graphics or theme tunes for the live stream tonight. So sorry about that. But as always, please do give us your thoughts, your comments, your questions, whatever it might be on the YouTube stream here. I'm going to be patrolling that, and usually we'd have Frankie there, maybe responding to some of the stuff in the chat, but I'll do my best to keep on top of all of that as well, and bring some of that stuff in. Like I say, we're going to talk about yesterday's difficult and uninspiring performance at Ibrox against Aberdeen. David, the first place to start, I suppose, is to acknowledge that we found Aberdeen to be a tricky opponent this season so far, having dropped points in the first 2 games. And for what was it, 82 minutes yesterday, it looked like we might drop points again yesterday for the 3rd time in a row against Aberdeen this season. It was a tough, scrappy affair. Why is it that we're struggling so much against a team that I think we started the day in 10th yesterday and have a couple of Rangers outcasts and cast-offs at the back? Why are we struggling so much against Aberdeen at the moment?
Good question, Ross. I think it's a combination of things, on a superficial level. I think Aberdeen clearly only play 4 times a season. Or certainly, if they're drawn against us in the Cups, it may be slightly more than 4. Although, having said that, it looks as though we might only be playing them 3 times this season if current form continues to split. So, I genuinely don't know, Ross. I think this has been going on for a number of seasons now. I mean, Stephen Gerrard's team seem to find it difficult to play against Aberdeen. So I think it's their cup final. I think they employ spoiling tactics. I think Lewis Ferguson's performance yesterday typifies that. And I think it's just a case that Rangers don't, for some reason, seem to raise their game against Aberdeen. I really don't know how you'd put your finger on it. I thought the performance yesterday, as I dare say, will come on to in due course. It was lacklustre. It was, some of the play was turgid. It was very, very one-paced. And when a team are trying to get in your face and trying to negate your decent play, it can end up, you can get caught up and essentially fall to their level, for want of a better phrase. I also don't think we've got players necessarily on form. I think Glenn Kamara he's struggling for form. I know we mentioned Glenn off air before we come on. He's clearly struggling for form. Ryan Jack came back after a layoff there, obviously trying to load balance him. There may be other factors involved there. And the playing off of Alfie yesterday just didn't seem to work. I don't know. I mean, I came away from the game yesterday quite frustrated with how Ryan Kent's been deployed. I don't think we're getting the best out of Ryan Kent. I think it's where he's asked to play in the pitch, I think it's a bit too rigid. I just think that there's a lull. I don't know. It's a strange one. I can't put my finger on it, to be honest with you. I know we mentioned there before we came on that there's a kind of Jekyll and Hyde aspect to Rangers play at the minute. They've been very, very proficient in Europe and how they dealt with the 2 games against Dortmund, and yet they seem to struggle to lift their game against the likes of St Johnstone and Morrow. And again, it happened again yesterday. And whether they're taking teams lightly, whether they're trying to conserve energy ahead of big European games, I don't know. But whatever's happening, the bread and butter's the league, and I'd like to see a bit more of a convincing performance with regards to league games.
I guess, Alec, the problem from my view of it this morning is that we weren't creating enough chances, and we could probably say the same of the St Johnstone game midweek. There's a comment here from Greg: 75 minutes until we had the first shot on target, which I think was a fairly weak Ryan Jack attempt from outside the box that rolled into the keeper's arms. As someone else says here, we still have on paper, I would agree, the strongest squad in the league. So what do you put this down to, this kind of general malaise at this point, that we're not creating enough chances? Like David says, some key players, Ryan Kent and Glenn Kamara, don't seem to be in form. I think Glenn Kamara hasn't been in form, in my opinion, since the new manager came in. And there does feel, given that we've won our last 2 games, but there is definitely a malaise at the moment, a lull. It all feels a little bit low and a little bit flat. David says we can't put our fingers on it. What do you think?
I'm struggling to put my finger on it. I can offer my usual kind of half-assed theories. You know what I mean? I feel as if, particularly, you look at the 2 games against Borussia Dortmund, which were some of maybe the 2 best performances. Certainly the away game, arguably one of the best performances I've ever seen from Rangers. if not the best performance I've ever seen from any Rangers team. The amount of energy required for that kind of performance, and the return leg at Ibrox, that's bound to have an effect. And you would then look at, if we're going to manage this situation, we're playing in Europe and challenging for the league title, it would be lovely to think, and this is a feeling I came away with yesterday, was that we were pacing ourselves. I didn't feel like that on Wednesday night. And Wednesday night was you remember that Tamuri Kitsbaya for Newcastle celebration when he put the fit through the advertising hoarding when he scored, because he was so frustrated with what had gone on before. I felt a bit like that in Wednesday night. It was one of the games, the final whistle went, and there was barely even relief that we'd go to 3 points. We're just kind of exasperated. And yet yesterday, I felt as if yesterday I was watching that game yesterday, and I was panicking like everybody else when it ran about the 20-25 minute mark, when it looked like we're just not doing this, we're just not up for it. They're not going to blow them away, 4 or 5-0 like you're always hoping. And then I felt as if, maybe it was just me, but I felt as if Rangers had kind of adapted to that as well. There was one moment where the ball came forward, the goalkeeper punted it up the park, and Golson misjudges the header with the fella, is it Ramirez, or the kind of Spanish named fella that they got up front, and the ball goes in behind them. Calvin Bassey tidies it up brilliantly. Calvin Bassey had a great game, I thought. But for just that wee second, I thought, oh, they're in here. And I let out a wee, Jesus Christ. And that's one of the first times. When I'm at the games, I don't say anything against Rangers at all. I go too much the other way. I don't give them any kind of barracking at all. And that was the one time I actually let out a bit of tension. But I think after that, I felt as if Rangers actually looked like they adapted to the situation. It was like last Sunday against Motherwell was a kind of get-rich-quick scheme. It was like we're 2-0 up, perfect time, goals right in the middle of the first half. And then we just kind of, we're out buying the Porsches and the fancy houses and all that, and everything's going to be great. And then the set just fell to pieces second half, whereas I felt as if yesterday it was more like a kind of work 95, put away your money in a low interest account, and get to retire comfortably, if not flashily, and we did that. We got away with the 3 points at the end. I'm maybe just seeing what I want to see. I said this in the immediate post-match reaction pod yesterday. I felt as if the season is now getting into single digits, in the amount of games that are left. The two most common phrases we're hearing in the last 24 hours is business end of the season, and that was a grind. And that's, I just want to believe we've just got 2 back-to-back wins in the league for the first time in a month. We've got one of them involving an away win and a home win for the first time since December. And if we're going to go on, 2 to 3 fronts, if you want to include the Scottish Cup as well, as Europe in the league, you're going to have to pace yourself. You're going to have to do, and I feel as if yesterday Rangers kind of matured halfway through the first half and just said, right, this is going to be a grind, but we'll make sure it's a grind that goes our way. And it's one of these games that benefits from watching like the actual highlights package on Sportscene rather than the whole 95 minutes we watched yesterday. You actually see Rangers up in the ante and keeping going, and it's like a slow turn of the screw. And you're right, Glenn Kamara is not the same player he was, but yet he's doing Joe Aribo things, Glenn Kamara yesterday, and setting up Aberdeen hit their own post in the first half. And then in the second, it's him taking on 2 Aberdeen players kind of in the inside left channel that puts the ball over for Tav to come in. I mean, the goal, you watch the goal, it's like a slow turning of the screw. We just keep going at them, we're strangling them slowly. And, we'll talk about Gio substituting Alfie for Ruth. That was a massive moment for him. And I felt as if yesterday, again, I'm going to keep saying this, I'm probably just seeing what I want to see. I'm probably getting I've had enough of being pessimistic, so I'm going to be optimistic. But I felt as if half-time at Parkhead, Gio took over the team properly. He stopped, letting them have their own head because they were unbeaten champions from the season before. Right, it's gone too far. The slip-ups after Christmas. My team now, 3 subs, you're going to do it my way. And then I felt as if yesterday he was kind of telling the crowd as well, because it was going off in the stands. There was Rammies, after on that substitution. And that's the fact that it worked within 3 minutes of him making that substitution. And Ruth was a poor substitute when he came on last Sunday, And there's no one thing that you can put your finger on with Gio. There's weird things happening all the time. We didn't expect to see Borna Barisic again after Parkhead. He's part of the reason we won in Dortmund. I really don't have an answer as to what's happening, but we're winning. We won the last 2 games. It's getting to that, and if we win our next 8 games 1-0, we'll win the league. It's a huge if, but winning them all 1-0 is no big deal. I just feel I felt more encouraged than dismayed yesterday. I must admit, but I get why David and other people weren't. Colin was the same. I was talking to Colin yesterday. He's like, no, we're not going to be able to win, at Parkhead or whatever we've got to win in the after the cut off to win the title. But I would like to see it more as a wee kind of another wee turning point.
Right. David, Alex there mentioned the Morelos substitution. There's been a couple of comments in the chat here that I very much agree that we're back to over-relying on Morelos to provide that spark and if not provide the goal, then probably provide the hold-up play that leads to the goal. And when Morelos was subbed off yesterday and Kamal Roof was brought on, it was certainly very audible and noticeable from my Rangers TV point of view that there was a lot of very vocal booing of that decision. Probably, I suspect, more that we're bringing Morelos off as opposed to putting Roof on. But as Alex says, it's a substitution that paid dividends very, very quickly. What do you make of that situation, the substitution itself, but also the reaction that it got from the crowd? Do you understand why people were frustrated?
That's a tough one, Ross. Let me caveat what I'm about to say by saying that if something were to happen to Alfredo Morelos in terms of an injury or an enforced absence, whether that be COVID or a suspension, and to James Tavernier, I think we can kiss Tata winning the title. I think it's that stark, and I think our need is that acute. Where I'm sat in the ground, I sit close to the Govan corner of the Coleman, and the vast majority around about me was the boos were ringing out around about me. But from where I could tell, I thought most of the boos were coming from the Coleman. I don't know where Alex sits, but he felt it was elsewhere in the ground. But I thought the vast majority was my side of the ground. I can understand the frustration, yes, from the point of view that Alfredo Morelos is our best striker, arguably our best player, probably our best goal threat. Kamal Roof coming on has struggled for fitness lately. Fans are legitimately pointing the finger at him in terms of his, these kind of injury-plagued question marks that have hung over his head during his career are starting to surface quite readily amongst the Rangers support. However, in Kamar's favour, we're talking about a guy that his goals to games ratio for Rangers is exceptional, and that's something that needs to be borne in mind, I would say. However, he's not played particularly well of late. His performance at Parkhead was uninspiring. Although in his defence again, I'm going to jump about here. How he's deployed by Van Bronckhorst might not necessarily suit Kamara. However, having said all that, the name of the game is put the ball in it, and Kamara came up trumps. So the manager will feel vindicated. Is that enough to dissuade, random fans in the stands from making their feelings known? I'm not so sure, because as we touched upon just off here before we come on, I get the distinct feeling that the jury's still out the manager. I don't think that enough. I don't think that the body politic of the Rangers support are necessarily convinced by the manager. Without turning it onto Gio, I think that's unfair, as again I mentioned to you, was until Gio brings in his own players, we can't really truly judge the guy. So, Kamar Roof, to get back to the question in hand, I think the team can be more potent with Alfie and Kamar on the side together. I think the interchangeability of the front three could potentially be better than it is. With Fashion Sakano, we'll come on to Fashion later in the show, but I still don't know where Fashion Sakala's position is in the team. I don't know whether he's a round peg in a square hole, if that makes sense, or a square peg in a round hole. But I think I'd like to think that Kamar Roof can start coming to a bit of form, can maintain a bit of fitness, so he can offer an option. Whether that's off the bench or whether it is, it's a different aspect to Rangers play. from if he starts a match where we're not too over reliant on Morelos. I thought yesterday, yet again, I know I'm kind of digressing slightly. Sometimes I watch Rangers lately and I think to myself, they're so over reliant on James Tavernier to drive the team forward that it's untrue, in my opinion. And certain players their form has tailed off slightly, and some guys it's just not happening for them. But I'd like to think that some of the other players can step up and take some of the load off of Alfie and James. So yeah, I hope Kamar can come out of the game, maintain his fitness, start notching a few important goals as he's done up to now in his Rangers career, and that can carry us to where we want to be.
Yeah, well, let's kind of tug at that a bit more and look, Alex, at Fashion Sakala in particular. It was a relatively rare start for him yesterday, and a player that's probably certainly got us all on side as a Rangers player, and that we want. I think universally we want to see him do well. I'm just looking at his stats here. He's got 7 goals for the season. He will obviously, I think, be aiming for double figures by the time the campaign's up, but he's not getting a huge amount of game time and certainly not getting consistent game time. Probably playing off the flank more than he would like if he wants to be an out-and-out striker. I think, for my opinion, it was clear from day one that he's not coming in to replace Morelos or be our most potent attacking threat. But would you say, getting this far towards the business end of his first season with Rangers, has he done enough? Has he brought enough? Has he contributed enough to kind of convince you that he has a long-term future as a Rangers player? Yes, I think I don't know about long term, but it's certainly worth sticking with, I would say. I think he averages about he averages about a goal every 3 games, I think, for club and country. And I checked his record for Zambia, and I think it's something like 17, 18 games. He's got 6 goals, and one of them's that's involving a hat trick. And it's a bit like his form for Rangers. The hat trick against Motherwell kind of skews his stats. The hat trick he scored at Fir Park this season, but it also, it's kind of what he deserves. Because I think the question with Sakala is the execution of his final ball or his shots on goal. Like yesterday. Again, he's one of the guys who probably doesn't benefit from just watching the highlights of that game, because I didn't realise how many chances he'd actually blasted over the bar or whatever. I remember the one in the first half where Kent plays it over from the left and he tried to take it, he'd time to bring it down, I felt, but he tries to take it first time volley, for a total worldie into the top corner. And that's the kind of time in the game when you maybe want to be getting a goal early, don't make it a different kind of game. You want to take your time and try and slot that away. But you also look at how many chances he did have. He's in the right place so often, and he certainly doesn't let the fact that he's not getting a goal put him off. I know that's an old man kind of thing to say. He keeps going back for more, but it's amazingly vital, particularly when he's so pacey. It's vital that he keeps giving teams problems so we can maintain enough of a shape and enough of pressure that we did yesterday. Aberdeen had 0 attempts on our goal. Yesterday, we almost had 0 attempts in theirs, but we were always threatening to get. It was just about the kind of final execution, and David's absolutely right. Roof and it's been a thing for me all season. Roof and Morelos don't work as a combo, which you would think the 2 of them can be world class at times. So you think the 2 of them together would be twice the threat, but they're not. They seem to kind of cancel each other out at times. Whereas Sakala and Morelos, I think, combine really well. What I was thinking yesterday was when Morelos come off. Was, well, we're not scoring a goal and we've got plenty of pressure, so the striker should be paying the price for that, and I think it's also a bit of a shame for Morelos, because particularly you remember his performance on Wednesday night up at Perth. Alfredo Morelos was laying his layoffs and what have you, but absolutely world class, but he needed Alfredo Morelos to be up front with him and to put him away. I think he needed another Alfie to be converting the chances, and he almost did it himself. The shot he had off the post, he'd laid it off to Arfield and got it back. And he's had a bit of that going on with Sakala. If Sakala's played with him the few times he has played with him, he's come on as a sub maybe, and Alfie seems to get on really well with Sakala, and that's something we could explore. But is Alfie going to be here next season? I don't know. And if he's not, it looks like he probably won't. Sakala, I think, is a guy we're going to need, and we maybe get to see him. If he's getting regular starts, he can sharpen himself up.
he's going to be 25, I think, a week tomorrow. So he's at that point in his career where he's no longer, he's got to start doing it, he's got to start performing to the best of his ability, got to start getting better numbers. But when you consider how few starts he's had and all that, well, the number of starts he's getting, and he's been played wide left, wide right, through the middle. So we kind of get the best out of him for not giving him a settled position. But at the same time, he's done well in all those. I think he's done well enough in all those positions to show that he's a guy we need to stick with. He's only played, was it Ostend in Belgium? I think that was the first time he's really played at a level.
Yeah.
He's been there for a few seasons, but before that it was kind of Zambian football and second division, second team football. He was a fringe player, almost unused at Spartak Moscow. So I think he's got a lot to prove, and I think his attitude, the smiley stuff and all that, don't be fooled. He's hard as nails. He's not going to stop. That the chance he had yesterday where he tries to nod it in at the back post and he basically poleaxes himself onto the track. I think that kind of summed him up. He'll give you his all, and his all is worth having. I think he's a player we need to hang on to. Yeah,
I really appreciate you making that point, that he is putting himself on the line. Whether it's that header where he did took a tumble, or it was a game 2 or 3 weeks ago. Was he come off with he'd lost a tooth, or he had a really blooded mouth?
That's right.
Because he does. I hate the expression, but he puts himself about. He gets involved. He doesn't shirk away from things. So for me, the jury's still out. I think on not necessarily levels of endeavour, but levels of.
I can't really picture him. I can't picture him being fair as the main man. Like he's not going. I don't think he's going to replace Alfredo Morelos.
Precisely.
But he's definitely a guy. A guy we'd want to have in your first 14, if you like, as opposed to your first 11.
Yeah, spot on. David, let's turn to look at some of the specific incidents of the game yesterday, and as always, it feels that we have certain corners of our media trying to dredge up some form of controversy around Rangers winning a game of football. Jim Goodwin has come out and said that our goal should not have stood, that there was a foul in the build-up. I think Calvin Bassey alleged to have fouled the Aberdeen defender in the box in the kind of phase of play before the ball comes back in for the goal. Lots and lots of sort of debate and discussion around did Joe Aribo handball as well, as the ball kind of bumbles through into the path of Kamar Roof. Now, in my opinion, it was never a handball. Even if it touched his hand was down by his side, and it was a natural. It wasn't kind of extending his silhouette, I think is how they phrase it now. And I think that if we were to give a foul for the Calvin Bassey thing, we'd give a penalty every time there was a throw-in or a corner. But there does seem to be some talk around it. There does seem to be some sort of fanning of the flames. So what's your opinion on the legitimacy of the Rangers goal?
It's a goal. It's as simple as that. It's in the record books now, so I mean the naysayers can debate it all they like. Well, let's take it in chronological order. The challenge by Bassey, it was on David Bates. I can't remember, Declan Gallagher. I can't remember who it was. If that's in the middle of the park, is it a foul? Possibly. I've seen them given. Put it this way, in Scottish football, I've seen plenty of challenges similar to that one, which have been let go. I've seen plenty of challenges far worse than that have been let go. So I don't think Jim Goodwin can have any complaints. To my mind, I've seen the ball coming off Joe Aribo several times, and I feel that it came off his chest. It may well have brushed his, the sleeve in his shirt in the way to come into contact with his body, but I don't see how you can give that as a handball. And Kamar Roof wasn't offside, so it's a goal. All you guys know, and the people listening, we live in times where somebody with a Twitter account can make noise online, and all it takes is somebody to pick up my tweet and post it somewhere that's got a lot of traffic, and it can be picked up by journalists, and it can suddenly develop into a talking point. And all it takes is a manager or a talking head, for want of a better expression, to pick up on it, and it becomes a talking point when it doesn't need to be a talking point. So I know from spending a bit of time online last night, sitting in the couch watching the telly after the game, that that our friends at Pacific Quay made some play out of actually highlighting the goal, and all the people in the studio, the possible exception of Jonathan Solomon, were of the consensus that it was a perfectly legitimate goal. So I think that speaks volumes. If Pacific Quay Celtic Supporters Club kind of come out and conclusively prove that it wasn't a goal and shouldn't have stood, and it was an illegitimate goal, then nobody will. So I think that says it all. So if it was a goal, we come away with 3 points. Depending on your point of view, I mean, you can be a glass half full type a guy like Alec, or you can be a glass half empty type of guy after the last couple of performances like me, and so we maybe go a dodge, slightly fortuitously. But at the end of the day, 3 points is 3 points, and over the course of the season, you've got to grind out victories. And that's the old cliche, teams that don't play well and still collect maximum points is usually the sign of a good team. So hopefully that comes to pass at the end of the season, and we remain to be the champions for season 21-22.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll stick with yourself, David, if I may. Mentioned earlier, Alec kind of dropped me in it and announced to the listeners that I was a wee bit worse for wear this morning after a heavy night. But like I say, I didn't see the game live yesterday, and last night I was scrolling through Twitter, and I seen a lot of discussion about a potential red card for a challenge on Scott Arfield, right in front of the dugouts, and I found a clip of it on Twitter, and in my I'd had one or two amarettos last night, let's say, and in that state, I felt that it was one of the worst challenges I'd ever seen. I've looked at it again this morning, and it's it maybe not the worst challenge I've ever seen, but it's a shocker, right? It's an absolutely appalling challenge. Do you think that could have, on another day, seen a red card?
Definitely. It's a red card challenge, and the current how the game's refereed. The laws of the game today, that's a red card challenge. Fortunately, Scott Arfield's such a streetwise and wily campaigner that he managed to get, I dare say he anticipated it coming and managed to get himself out of the road sufficiently where it was only going to cause minimal damage, if at all. So, but you cannot lead with the studs in such an aggressive manner in today's game. But as we've spoke about for years now, Ross, the standard of refereeing in Scottish football is abysmal. The fact that such a challenge is still being condoned by the fact that referees are not clamping down on it is ridiculous. But when you live in such a goldfish bowl as Glasgow, where, let's say for instance that John Beaton felt, that he wasn't going to bow to the outside pressure, and he wasn't going to send the guy off on the merit of the challenge. He would have been castigated. He's been a homer. John does his job for the 150th anniversary game and hands the points in a silver platter to Rangers. All the usual nonsense that we are subjected to in this part of the world. But the challenge, it's a straight red card, and the fact that it wasn't just adds insult to injury. But are we surprised the standard referee in this country? No. And until there's a wholesale change in attitudes, and without digressing into murky waters with regards to refs being in pockets and feeling under undue pressure to referee in such a way, the game will never get any better in this country, and that will always hold us back. And for a country that purports to be progressive, depending on how you view your going about your daily life, and when it comes to football, we're keeping up with the more progressive nations that seem to want to change things for the better. You're sadly lagging, and I must confess it exasperates me.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, you have to feel that the whole refereeing issue, and this isn't going to sort of descend into me having a soapbox moment about refereeing in Scotland, but it does feel to me that this issue is coming to a head. We're all discussing VAR at the moment. It's very hot topic in the media, with every sort of hired mouth putting their thoughts in. whatever, it's a debate that needs to be had sensibly with the right framework and proper mature discussion. It doesn't escape my kind of attention, and maybe this is unwarranted, but I certainly feel that. Do you remember earlier in the season at the Celtic AGM, their chairman called out that the refereeing has been poor? I feel that since then there have been a lot of decisions in Celtic's favour. Personally, I've seen some stuff today about clips of a Celtic player, I think it might have been Ralston, slips, sort of knocks the ball out of touch with his hand, out for a goal kick with his hand, and a corner is given to Celtic from which they score. Or Tom Rogic playing basketball with the thing and no fouls given. Look, you can kind of descend into this weird paranoid, they're all against us type thing. We can then start having debates about the board should be calling this out and building bridges and dignified silence. And it's a really, really sort of murky, almost impossible to win debate that we could have here. But it feels to me like this whole issue of refereeing is coming to a head. We can talk about professionalism of referees. We can talk about referees declaring allegiances of who they grew up supporting. We can talk about referees going on strike and having to bring in geezers from Luxembourg again. It's a really, really difficult, dangerous in a way, kind of sensitive subject. So
that's what it is, though, Ross. We don't want to get involved because we're decent people. You don't want to get involved because you're saying it's murky. And that's getting played on. I feel as if for decades that's been getting played on. The fact that we don't want to get, I am your classic dignified silence is the way to go type person. I think it comes a point where, you can lose your own identity. If you get too involved in the paranoia of others. But I'm always quite open about this. It's a total dichotomy for me. How do you call out what Celtic are doing without becoming like Celtic? You know what I mean? You don't want to. You're relying on sportsmanship. I'm at a stage now where I'm quite delighted. I'm quite relieved when I see likes a Tav on Wednesday night get away with one. Put the studs in Ali Crawford. He could have been off for that. Yesterday, Scott Arfield, before he's taken out viciously by the Dutch fella for Aberdeen, he is a right old whack at Ferguson, which I'm at the stage now where I'm like, oh, thank God, right, it's not a conspiracy against us because I don't want life to be like that. I don't want it. I don't want to be thinking, and it's not a conspiracy. It's as you're quite rightly saying, we've been hearing this stuff for like 20 years, and it's getting to the stage where you can't blame referees almost for thinking it's just no worth the hassle. And whenever it's trying to find a solution to it, because the idea of us behaving towards the SFA the way Celtic have, I find I don't want Rangers to go down that route, but my imagination can't come up with anything else. It's just to pressure them, and it's really sad, and it would almost kind of put you off the sport, and then you suddenly think, oh yeah, that's kind of what they want. You know what I mean? They want us to they want us to stop caring, so they can just get away with it. And I think what we have to watch for, and one thing that's going to bring home exactly why we shouldn't be going on this friendly tour to Australia, is what's going to happen now that we're getting into the single figures of games left. We're neck and neck in a league race with Celtic, and we're in Europe. The stuff that's going to come out, over the next few months is going to make it. It's not. We can get into this whole separate debates to be had about how we got on with the Celtic support and what have you, and just against that kind of friendly in general. And they're all very valid debates, which I love having. But the thing for me here is it's the Celtic board, the way they've operated since Peter Lawwell joined them like 20 years ago. The very moment we've get back into bed with them, the first thing they've done is use that friendly to distract from the class action news. And that should teach everybody at Rangers. Look, you need to learn your lesson here. They don't need us anymore. It's all about Europe now. If you can get the Champions League money, that's what it's about. And I feel as if there's that phrase about was it you look like a guy who's dropped a tenner and found a fiver. With Celtic, we need to remember them shifting the break and stopping us when we were in our run of playing them when we were on form and they were missing all sorts of players and playing Aberdeen. Just stopping the fixtures going ahead when they were supposed to go ahead. Yep. We're going to get £3 million for a friendly, but they've cost us £30 to £40 million for the Champions League money potentially with that carry on. So it's all linked. The pressure is going to go on referees. They have no shame. We're already seeing Tom English withdrawing his little statement.
Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. It's funny. David mentioned, Pacific Key Celtic Supporters Club earlier, and if anyone has any doubt as to how accurate that is, look at what's happened with Tom English this week. Tom English, who's not known for his staunch Rangers support, like it's simply unbelievable. Alec, sorry to cut you off, but we're getting so many comments here on the YouTube chat about, still looking at Gio and his managerial style, and comments like maybe he's too soft. As David said earlier, does he need to have his own players in? Do we need to give him a couple more transfer windows? And I think it's probably a debate that we could have before we even get into the tactical side of things. It's debates we could have for hours on end. But Alec, just to give you kind of the last word on this, there has been a lot of chat about how Gio has come in and blown the leads that Steven Gerrard had accrued before he moved to Villa. And whilst in terms of points on the table, that is, it's accurate, it's factual. I think I'm right in saying that his points per game in the league is actually higher than Gerrard's was. We're now obviously we're not winning. We're a few points behind. Our goal difference is worse off, and in my opinion, the style of play, perhaps, or the level of play, it's low, it's poor, it's not enjoyable to watch. Certainly, the last few games in the league have been highly unenjoyable. But albeit, as I say, his points per game is higher than Gerrard's was. And I think is higher than it has been for Rangers for any of Gerrard's seasons at charge, other than obviously last year when we won the title. Is it fair to say maybe that the negative style of football or poor performances are almost making, putting this malaise on things and maybe making things seem worse than they actually are? Or is it actually valid to say, no, he came in with a 6-point lead over Celtic and we're now 3 points and a lot of goals behind?
Well, if Gio's blown any lead, it's his own lead. He's responsible for our worst run of the season in the league, but also our best run of the season. Steven Gerrard was doing well. I think there's a lot of confusion caused by the fact that we're losing, the first goal in so many games. I think we won most of them. Was it 7 games in a row we conceded the first goal? And it was getting to be a thing, but I think we won the vast majority of those games.
Did, yeah.
But then Gio comes in, I think it was 8 games in a row we scored the first goal, and we're winning these games, and he's going into the winter break with a 6-point lead. That's been blown, but I think he's had 4 draws and 1 defeat, Gio. And what has he got? I think he's got 17 games in charge, and Gerrard had 3 draws and 1 defeat and 13 games in charge. So he will have a better points per game rate than Gerrard this season. And then I think if you want to throw in as a tiebreaker, Europe, we were struggling in Europe under Stevie G this season, which wasn't like him. I love Steven G. I love what he did with Rangers. I know we're still a bit raw because of the way he left, but that's football. That's the way it happens. And a guy like that was going places because he was doing so well. So that's fine. He needs to have a target to keep him doing well at Rangers, and I think that's probably why we kind of lost it a bit at the start of this season. There was a hangover from last year. He wasn't motivated, whatever. But I think Gio, you're spot on, and David's been saying that as well. We need to give the guy a summer, to get his own team in. But the problem he's got is he's arrived in a season where, the potential to go straight into the Champions League means that he's not getting any patience. But I think he's a completely different character to Gerrard. I remember saying to Colin when he first arrived, Gio is such a bubbly character as a player, and kind of quite kind of a really boyish looks and what have you. And he's put on maybe about an ounce of weight since he actually stopped playing football, but his face just looks like it's lived. He's been places, and I think maybe it's the leather gloves and the scarf and the nice coat. But with Gerrard, used to come into press conferences, he liked an argument, he wanted a bit of a rammy. But as I was saying to Colin, with Gio, it just looks like there's not going to be an argument. Just, it's my way or your body's going to be found 15 miles off the highway. He's got a quite kind of cold, kind of diffident. I actually find his press conferences quite boring. Used to love listening to Gerrard. Gio is he's neither up nor down, which I think can actually be a much scarier thing. We don't know what team he's putting out. I think the players don't know what team he's going to be putting out either at times. We've seen him going without making any substitutions at Perth, quite incredible. Like there was 3 changes yesterday from the starting 11 at Perth, and you thought, no, actually it was 3 changes from the finishing 11 as well. Yesterday's game. And then yesterday he's taken off our favourite player, as if to say, you want subs, right? We'll get a sub. We win both games 1-0. We got a goal in the 3rd minute. and it's agony after that. We're going to 81st minute, it was agony before that. I think the way I see it, and it's just a personal opinion, is he was giving the players, we got the new manager bounce when he arrived. As a guy who wanted to be there, and Gerrard probably didn't. Got the new manager bounce, the players loved it, we went on a great run. The winter break thing can't be, and I'm sorry to go on earlier about the Celtic thing, but it triggers me, and it's the way going on like that. I start ranting. I don't ever want to sound like that, you're in their court when you start going like that, and I apologise for that, but I feel as if he's come back from the winter break, and the post-winter break blues for Rangers is an institutional thing almost. It's not. This isn't something new to Gio. And I feel as if he's the draw at Aberdeen. Part of the reason I think we've slipped up with Aberdeen is the timing of when we've played them. We played them after Walter Smith had died, and our club was in mourning. Other clubs would have cancelled that game on the back of that. Walter Smith would never let that happen, and so we played that game, and we're 2-0 down before we knew what happened, and we come back. Difficult to play a game in those circumstances, and then we played Aberdeen at Pittodrie. This was the first taste of the kind of post-winter blues, that affected us twice under Gerrard. And Gio's given them their place. He's thought, well, it's just a slip up. And then after Ross County, he's less convinced. And at halftime at Parkhead, he's thought, no, I've had enough. And I think our level of play after that, even the second half at Parkhead, I know they were knackered, but I think it really improved. Blew away Hearts, did well against Hibs. And as I say, I think you can't underestimate the fact that 2 performances against Borussia Dortmund, this isn't a bonus or an add-on. This is what I follow Rangers for. It's for nights like that. That's a trophy, those games. And that's something he's given us straight away. And if you can get that level of performance at the players, I don't think we can be surprised when they drop off. For me, all in all, if you add in the potential for being tired after games like that and thinking that Gio's only taken over at halftime at Parkhead, the only game I've out and out had a problem with him was Motherwell last week. Because we're 2-0 up, and we should have put it to bed. And he didn't diagnose the problem quick enough either. We could see Motherwell coming back into the game, and he didn't do enough about it. Everything else, I might have been unhappy with the performance, but he's got the win. We might not have got the win like at Tannadice, but we got a performance. So I think for a man who's arrived at a brand new team in a massive pressurised situation, the jury is still out, but I certainly don't think he's any worse than Steven Gerrard was at the beginning of this season. And I think we should stick by. We're going to stick by him anyway, but I think I'm more encouraged than I was when he actually joined us. Put it that way.
You always know what to say to make me feel better. You really do. David, we'll move on from I suppose the game itself yesterday to look at the wider context of that match in Rangers history, and it's clearly a very, very significant week for Rangers as we turned 150 years old, and something that we've been kind of teasing throughout the season with anniversary kits and all sorts of stuff happening throughout the season, but yesterday's game kind of marked the poignant moment, I guess, that represented 150 years of Rangers. What did you make of the celebrations themselves at the game? I mean, it's clearly very rare for all 4 stands to be involved in that kind of tifo or display. So do you think that kind of lived up to the billing as a celebration of 150 years?
Yeah, I thought the tifo was pretty good. Where I'm in the ground, I couldn't see any of it, Ross. I was under I think was it the players celebrating at Parkhead at the end of Doug Advocaat's first season. So I couldn't really see anything. I had to rely on photographs online afterwards. But no, I thought Union Bears and the Blue Order, whoever it is, the lads that organise these tifos, they've come up trumps time and time again for the club. And yesterday was no different. I thought the tifo was how would I put it? I've seen them do particularly maybe more visually spectacular ones in terms of the kind of the metallic ticker tape type style. But I thought it was considered. I thought it captured the journey that the club's been on over the 150 years that it's been in existence. And I thought it was fun. I thought the fans were in decent voice in the lead up to the game. The early part of the game took the shine off of that slightly, for being honest. But no, I thought I thought that the celebrations yesterday were good. I don't know where the white kit ended up. I don't know what the story was with that. I'm not going into that in too much detail, but that obviously will have upped quite a number of supporters that put their hands in their pockets and bought not one strip, but probably several for their kids and their family, and wore it to the game yesterday with anticipating that the guys would run out and wear it. But for whatever reason, maybe the club can come out and communicate to some of these people that have purchased that kit and explain the reasons why. But by all means, I didn't make it to the fan village yesterday, but I heard it was quite good. I think it was good from the family's entertainment perspective, and maybe it was a kind of festival food. Might give a pointer to certainly Eleanor for best practice going forward as they finish up their contract with us, and I'm sure Compass will take some of that stuff on board. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't overwhelming. I wouldn't say it was underwhelming, but it was quite fun. But again, it's kind of all that stuff's a kind of distraction. You're all about what's on the pitch, the performance, the points, and if I could sum it up succinctly, the fact that we put that celebration on yesterday, however you want to look at it, whether it's muted or spectacular, however you choose to view it, the fact that we actually put it on and you're still here, that's going to stick in the throat of a lot of people. And that gives me, I take great pleasure in that, the fact that we're still here and you're not going anywhere. And despite a recent form that may suggest otherwise, we're still in this title fight and we're the champions, and I'll take a hell of an effort for Ange Ball and his cohorts to wrestle it away from me.
I think that's such a good point, David, that it's, it kind of gets easy to just pat yourselves on the back and go, well done, we've done 150 years. There was a concerted effort amongst our contemporaries to end our history, to end our club. So it's not just about, Rangers have been around for a long time. It's Rangers have survived a concerted effort to kill Rangers. And that effort failed. You wouldn't know it, right? You wouldn't know it by looking at our contemporaries, the people that we share this league with, that can't bring themselves to, say, the old firm, that allegedly threaten journalists that use the words old firm in broadcast media.
They re-register trademarks.
Yeah, they re-register trademarks. So I think that's a really sort of sophisticated point, that it's not just about saying we're a really old club. It's that we're a really old club that survived an attempt to cease the club, the most successful club, the preeminent establishment club. And we've come through that. And when I go to Ibrox today and look around, it's the number of people that I see of a generation, I hate saying it, but it's a generation below mine now, right? It's kids, teenagers, 15 to 18, who have grown up in a footballing sense in our darkest time, and yet still come. And, the Union Bears clearly do a phenomenal job and orchestrated all of that stuff in stadium yesterday. They're kids, they're teenagers, they're young adults who did not have the pleasure of growing up and watching John Gregg and Colin Steen and Davy Cooper. They grew up watching Kyle Hutton and Ross Perry and Emerson Krabari, and yet they still do this. They still have that passion. They still put on these displays. And we're in a time now, look, at this moment, this isolated moment, the board's coming in for a huge amount of criticism with the Australia friendly, with transfers that perhaps at the moment aren't being seen in the best light, a media strategy or a communication strategy that's not winning us a lot of friends and support within our own fan base, let alone the wider community, with things that seem to be basic mistakes like the white kit, whether it was forgotten to be registered or not. You're right, David. People have shelled out on that and not seen it played, not seen a game with it. And it was supposed to be worn yesterday and it wasn't. So people are going to be frustrated. And that frustration gets directed at the board. But for the fan base to kind of park all that, put it to one side and still put on that kind of display, that kind of celebration, I think is really, really, really admirable. I mean, Alec, I know that you're like myself, you sit in the main stand, so probably don't actually get involved in these kinds of displays too much because we're always looking at them in the Sandy Jardins. So it's phenomenal, isn't it? I guess the question is it right that these things are left to the Union Bears to organise and sort of self-fundraise, and should the club be taking a more active role in this kind of thing, or how should it all work? What do you make of it?
Well, given what they did yesterday, I'm quite happy if the Union Bears organised that. Forevermore, it was absolutely beautiful. Although I have to register my complaint. There was no mural for the tenant sixes. I thought that was disgraceful. A part in our history that I'm extremely proud of. Nothing, not even mentioned. So they might well love themselves. And also, I think for the 160th, what we should be doing is everybody should be getting like an orange ponchos, brown ponchos, yellow ponchos. Do the old seats the way they used to be before we get the seats all turned to blue. When we first built the stands, have the multicoloured seats. We should represent that maybe next time. I'm just angry because I never got a poncho. In the main stand, we didn't get the ponchos. So all I got to bring home was my wee white bit of film paper, whatever it was. It was brilliant. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was a real tearjerker, and I think they were magnificent. A magnificent effort. You think the size of a beautiful stadium that they got all those the stuff out there. And it was just lovely seeing them capturing all the moments in our history. You're looking round. I used to have my season ticket used to be in the Govan rear, and I used to love looking at the main stand. And there's nothing more beautiful than just like, especially European nights, you feel like that big main stand with the 3 tiers. Since they put the club deck on, it's going to fall on top of you. It's so beautiful. But yesterday I was really happy that I was in the. Since I moved over to the main stand, I've kind of missed that. I missed looking at it, if you know what I mean. If you're in it, you can't see it. But yesterday, seeing the other 3 stands, the way they were done up, it was just magnificent. And I think a lot of craven images, a lot of idolatry, a lot of showiness. So I think it was quite good. The team then went out and reminded us all that we're dour and Presbyterian, and just brought us all back down to earth with the style of the game. So we remember it's quite Calvinist performance. But no, it was absolutely gorgeous, and I'm so happy that we got a result for it. To go along with it at the end, and it's a difficult thing. The board should be involved in these things. I think just letting the Union Bears get on with it is a good move, because you want it to come from the fans. So if it's the board, if it's the Rangers themselves that are organising it, it can get a bit stagey, it can get a bit corporate, because they'll want to do it in a certain way. But I thought that yesterday was just the love of the club from the fans made manifest, and it was a lovely thing to be a part of, and I'm so glad we got the result in the end. I just hope we end up with a trophy or two to go along with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely right, absolutely. Listen, gents, that kind of takes us right up to the hour, and to be honest with you, I need a Barocca and a lie down. So I think it's about time that we wrap things up. I have to say that the chat, the comments tonight have been kind of absolutely non-stop. So I apologise that Frankie's not been here to keep a closer eye on that and get involved. But thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight and got involved, giving us your thoughts.
Are they all complaining that you said amarettos instead of amaretti? Because I would have been writing in for that, mate. That's out of order. It really is.
No, but there has been someone CGM here talking about tenant sixes and the memories that's evoked. So that's you guys sort of sharing in your old age. I'm gonna wrap things up there. So as I say, thank you to everyone who's joined us in on the stream tonight. And I apologise that I've not been able to kind of get to more of those. But thank you so much for giving us your time. And as always, thank you to David and Alex for giving up their Sunday evenings. As I say, the podcast is always available first thing on a Monday morning for download wherever you get your podcasts from. Please do just like and subscribe. Make sure you never miss a thing. The Gersnet podcast will be back on Wednesday. We're going to come back with a preview show looking ahead to the Rangers' last 16 first leg tie against Red Star Belgrade. You'll notice I said that in the English name as opposed to the Serbian, because I've still got a few days to work out how to pronounce it. So please do join us on Wednesday evening if you'd like to see me try and butcher some Serbian. Until then, thank you so much for joining us and have a great week. Bye for now.